Prepare to be captivated by the business story of the week, hosted by me, Shaheen Shan. Join us on a journey through the twists and turns of entrepreneurial triumphs and setbacks. Immerse yourself in the narrative and witness the magic that turns dreams into reality. This is Business Story of the Week.
And welcome back, folks. Welcome back to Business Story of the Week. I am your co-host, Joshua, and every day we unravel stories of innovation, perseverance, struggles, success. And today we've got ourselves, I'm quite excited with this guest because she is at the forefront of what I think is a very unique, innovative approach to the future of our country, of the world, of everybody in general, right? Kristen Geez is a Gen Z enthusiast, a two-time author, professor, speaker, instructional content creator, on-screen talent, and a two-time founder. Kristen is a passionate advocate for Gen Z empowerment. We'll get on that today. She leverages her expertise as a professor and as an author to guide young people towards success. With a focus on providing resources and mentorship, she founded the Advising Generation Z Foundation and the Advising Gen Z EdTech platform. We're going to get into that today, dedicated to empowering the next generation with the skills and knowledge they need to thrive in today's world. Kristen, thank you so much for being here today. You look lovely. I'm very excited for this show, for this episode.
I'm excited. Thank you for having me. And it's so funny. Every time I hear my bio, I'm like, are they talking about me still? I'm like, oh, that's long. I'm so young. So thank you for doing it so well. You did it well. And thank you for this. I think a lot of people don't realize how much work goes into your job to even be able to have these type of shows and this platform. So thank you for your work.
Well, you are lovely. And I'm always, I enjoy these because I get to have, people like you who's had these great ideas, and it enriches me, not only me, but all our audience and listeners as well. And that introduction and that bio is perfect because, first of all, I've never called anyone or described anyone as a Gen Z enthusiast, right? But before we get there, I always like to start these things, this way, in that, where did it all begin for Kristen Geez? What happened throughout your childhood, perhaps, throughout your life? Were there any pivotal moments or experience that inspired you to dedicate your career to empowering young people?
Well, thank you for the question. I would have to say young Kristen, I'm 34 now, but I would say young Kristen definitely never thought I would be doing what I'm doing today, even though I look back at my life and I was technically the same one. I grew up very young, always, clinging to my mom and my dad, their briefcase, and hosting little meetings in my room with my stuffed animals and getting on the bed and telling them stories. I used to really do that actively in my room. I had a very vast imagination until I probably got to middle school, and I realized that wasn't the cool thing to do. And at that time, my parents also kind of divorced and separated, and living in the household with my mother and my stepfather and my two stepbrothers, there was a lot of family dynamic issues going on, just a lot of anger coming from my stepfather's side. And it was a very different home environment from growing up with my mom and my uncles and aunties versus living in that household. And so I found myself kind of coming to school, casting myself as a new character, the school bully, if you will. Not my proudest accomplishment or title, but I was definitely the school bully. I definitely took all the anger that I couldn't express at home from what was going on with the anger within my stepfather, but also with the, sexual abuse with my stepbrothers happening to me. And what I realized is, as I think about today, there wasn't an opportunity, especially back then, to actually talk about the things that were going on at home. Not because my mom didn't love me. If I told her, she would have definitely removed us a lot sooner. But I think as you were growing up, you start to see things differently, and you get to a judgment place and to a why is this happening to me? And it's only happening to me. And the secret of what was going on at home didn't ever come out in my friend groups. Instead, I looked for ways to distract myself. And I would
Wow.
always find myself now, I went from the teddy bears in my room, gathering them together, to now gathering students at school to go
Mm-hmm.
shoplift or to go do something negative or to go do something, right? That was, I never stopped the ability to network and meet with people about something. But and then it kind of, my mistake of bullying ended up getting me expelled from a school and moved to a new school, a new high school. And that's when I met Dr. Parker, who was my assistant superintendent. She just retired as assistant. She was my assistant principal. She just retired as assistant superintendent and now serves on my board along with 6 other board members. But she gave me an opportunity. She was the first educator that said, I'm looking at your record. I'm looking at how much misbehaving you're doing at school. And really, what I see you doing is you're a leader. And we just haven't put you in a program. We haven't given you an opportunity to be able to see those leadership skills. We haven't given you something passionate. And I think a lot of times when you're in a school environment, and even, as a parent, you try to plug your kid in all these things. And my mom I was busy, but I still had time to get into mischief, right? I was in band, I was in debate, I was in all the activities. I could master doing all those things and still find mischief. But it was
Wow.
Dr. Parker giving me the opportunity to see myself in a different light, leading the first ever school Black History Month program at my district, which was a 5A school at the time, and didn't have a lot of African American students there. But it was me seeing that event be put on for the whole month, doing activities with a few of my peers that I would have never become friends with. It was exposing me into that new environment that really changed my scope and really ultimately allowed me to leave high school and even decide to go to college. And that's how I started that passion of graduating high school, getting into college, and realizing that transition from high school to college. I was confused. It took me 6 years to get an undergraduate degree. I'm in my PhD program today, but
Wow.
it took that long because there wasn't a connection there. And so that's when I started
Right.
getting this funk of, I'm missing something. The last time I felt fulfilled was in high school. Let me go visit Dr. Parker and see what it is that I'm missing. And that's where the idea came from of, maybe you're the missing thing that these kids don't know. Maybe you should be creating a safe space for them to talk about these issues. Maybe you should be telling them the reality of what happens when you graduate, which is that no one cares about you
Mm-hmm.
when you get past 24. I think we talk a lot about young people, but no one talks about that 25 to 35. No one cares. They expect you to know. And so I thought of, okay, how do we go into schools? How do we partner with kids who were just like me, who were bullying, who were getting in trouble, and who needed a Dr. Parker in that space? And I think that has evolved to where I am today, to realizing it's not just about Gen Z and not just about the students. It's really, how do I create more opportunities for Dr. Parkers who are in their lives every day to actually give them that second chance and give them that leadership skill? And that's really where our business, as far as the EdTech platform, has evolved.
Fantastic. First of all, shout out to Dr. Parker. Thank you so much. We need more Dr. Parkers in the world. And what a way to fill the void, right? Fill that kind of need. And not just in yourself. That was Dr. Parker for you. But then you found this kind of like everything felt together or fell into place for you where you can be the Dr. Parker for all these kids now. And I want to highlight what you said that after 24 years or so, no one really cares. No one really, yeah, everyone expects you to
They
figure it
don't.
out, right? And what a relatable aspect or what a relatable kind of perspective that we as millennials had to deal with, right? But this is why I love the concept of or your mission, so to speak, or your purpose, is that as millennials, we're like, no, like we never really got that much love from all our, the previous, the boomers were always at our, on us, telling us, we're snowflakes and all that. But the Gen X or the Gen Z rather is now, at an opportunity where they could be, they could bloom, they could be themselves and achieve more. And why not that be us? Why not the millennials be the ones to guide them, right? Because my concept or what I'm always thinking is like we shouldn't continue that trend of the previous generation berating the new generation and telling them everything that's wrong with them because we all need a Dr. Parker in our lives. I love that. So uh, your work as a, like a speaker and an author, now that you're putting importance in mentorship and guidance for the Gen Z. How do you, first of all, talk to us about the approach, because I think that's very important. How do you What makes the approach to educating Gen Z so much more different, regardless of educational platforms and programs? How do you make sure that what you teach them and what you mentor them to them resonates with today's youth?
I think a lot of things. I'm in the stage of my career where I'm transitioning out of having direct contact every day with Gen Z and more training leaders to have opportunities to be their own version
Mm-hmm.
of Dr. Parker.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say one thing that I do as a professor is I take the time to actually ask. I think sometimes, even as a millennial, we don't understand that there's this narrative of this generation versus this generation. In reality, it's a
Yes.
collective input in order for us to really get the world the way we want it to be, right? And I say this all the time, it's our joint mission. It's not one generation's job to take it the full way. We've just got to stay in our lane. And so I think one thing that I do try to do effectively is I've just become a very good listener. Before I decide to create a program or design even a speech, I take the time to go listen. I take the time to go study. And that's probably, why I'm still in school, right? Going and pursuing my PhD is because I think being a scholar in any subject that you're passionate about, sitting in the problem long enough to understand the problem and not come in thinking that is what sets you apart. And I think when it comes to Gen Z, I'm actively every semester for at least 4 weeks spending at least 4.5 hours sitting in a circle with Gen Z, asking them what it is that they want, asking how can I advocate for them better. And then I'm also in turn sitting with youth leaders saying, what problems do you have and barriers do you have that won't allow you to actually give this opportunity? Because I think, as we get older, you start to realize, and you got to look kind of at your history, and that's why it's so important. Slavery only ended 100 years ago. Women were only allowed to vote along with African Americans not too long ago. And I'm bringing those
Mm-hmm.
dates up because
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes when we judge boomers and the silent generation, we don't realize how much the world has evolved for all of them, regardless if they're even racism or not, right? We don't realize how
Mm-hmm.
much the world has evolved and how quickly it's evolving. And while we are
Mm-hmm.
all adapting and excited and like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, we've got to realize that a lot of us aren't even sitting in the problem long enough to even know that if the boomers really did not exist, could we even take the world to the next place, or would we all be entrepreneurs? And we just I could go on and on, but I think sitting in the problem with Gen Z is probably the easiest way I can say of going to the approach.
And that's a fantastic way to approach it as well, because you've not only highlighted that you spend the time with the Gen Zs, listening to them, but also um, like expressing this sense of empathy for the boomers as well, for the previous generations as well. Like they lived in a wildly different time, wildly different world. And if listening isn't also empathy, right? Like of course it is. And when you sit down and then you take all these views, and it all kind of comes together that we all just need to be listened to. And I love that. I love that it sets apart, or it sets this foundation of how you approach the Gen Zs, but not just the Gen Zs, everyone basically. I love that. Kristen, you founded, or you created, what we call, the Advising Gen Z Ed Tech platform. You called it, I watched your interview with Jeff Crilly, and you called it the first digital discipline platform. I love that concept. It's like it's something new. It's something unique, so to speak. Talk to us a bit about that, because you talked about transitioning from dealing with Gen Zs and to youth leaders to handle Gen Zs. Where does this digital discipline app or platform come in, and how does that kind of change everything in the educational landscape for Gen Z leaders?
Yeah, so the idea, I've been running the nonprofit part of it, the mentoring portion, since I guess 2010, so about almost 12 years.
Wow.
And I think what I realized as we were transitioning in about 2017-ish, as I started doing these events and working with schools and courts to really send in mentors to work with these kiddos, we would have these end of the year parties where we would bring all of the kids together from all of our different programs and kind of celebrate them for not getting in trouble anymore. And one of the things that I noticed in every one of those end of the year parties is when I did have an opportunity to meet with practitioners, they always talked about how there's not any curriculum for them. There's not any modules for them to show on why the rules are in place. So for example, if I'm not supposed to fight or graffiti, you don't realize that when you decide to deface public property, that you're actually taking away from someone's job. Someone's job now is
Mhm.
to do that. Or when you are missing, that there is an officer that has to stay out later and not get to go back home to their family because they're searching for
Mhm.
you. Meanwhile, you were just at a park smoking weed. Right. I think
Mhm.
that there's so many things going on that we're not connected. And so, doing what I love to do, I listened. And about a year and a half, I went around listening, and I was working at PBS at the time. And I remember talking to Mickey Smith, who is also sitting on our board today. She's working at Cox now, but I was talking to her about how there's not content out there that is actually teaching young people about why rules are in place. If there's a school of conduct and there's rules there, all we know, and you know as a millennial, don't do this, don't wear this, don't do this, but I don't know why. Who wrote that? Is that the law? I'm breaking the law when I do this? Or same thing in the public space, right? Okay, why is there curfew set in place? Why is that
Mhm.
there? I think a lot of times when you have these rules, and because boomers have been around for so long, and not in a
Mhm.
bad way, but they've been around for so long that and they grew up in a time where they couldn't ask questions, whereas
Mhm.
we as millennials really created the wave to be able to
Yes.
ask questions. And then you have this
Yes.
younger generation that if you can't explain it to me, I'm not buying into that. And so hearing all of that, I realized that the only way we were going to be able to solve the problem of why curfews in place, why this rule of you not being able to smoke or being able to drink, or why these rules even on the road are in place, to show that
Mhm.
importance was going to have to be able to elevate the voices of those practitioners. And so I realized,
Mhm.
in having conversations with my board and partnering with Pyramid Technology Solutions to really build the platform, it was doing what I said that I did as a 4-year-old. I put leaders in a room. We sat in a circle. We talked about the issue. I told them what I thought we should do, but I actually listened to them. And then I walked away from those meetings. And then I said, okay, who are the people that I need in place to even make this happen? And then I picked up the phone and I called those people on the phone and brought them in a room. And we launched the app in 2023. And as of right now, we have about 4,675 students on the platform, and we are partnering with youth practitioners specifically here in the Texas area, but we are in several states, really creating a discipline reimagine journey. So it's not just the app that has this curriculum very similar to defensive driving, but focusing on all things that you could get a ticket for or a citation or an office referral for, but elevating those practitioners to be able to be the people on those videos. Because I think, you can probably remember that one mean teacher, right? But you don't realize that that one mean teacher, their only job is to make sure you're safe. So we've got to create a
Right.
space for you to realize that that mean teacher is repeating to you something that a teacher at another school and another officer that pulled you over, they're repeating the same information. But because you only see it through this lens, they don't like me, or this is racist. Well, sometimes
Mhm.
it's your safety at hand, but it's
Mhm.
our job as adults to create those bridges between the connections of why I have these rules in place, and I still want you to have the freedom to be who you are, but you got to be who you are within this box that doesn't affect everybody else. And that's really what our platform does.
That's fantastic. First of all, I want to highlight there that what you said about, first of all, you said bridging the connection, why, and, why should you stay in within these rules? What does your actions affect? What are the consequences? Because if that isn't the biggest, I would say, the biggest, I don't want to call it fault, or one of the major flaws of a Gen Z that I have observed is their disconnect with the rules, right? The disconnect with, like, they don't understand why, this shouldn't be done, why this shouldn't be. And I love that you focus that curriculum on that because, again, like, we were expected to we were expected to already know, right? And we couldn't expect these same things to the Gen Z. We need to be the adults and we need to be the leaders to tell them why the way things are the way they are in an emphatic way, in a more listening, um, caring, compassionate way. And I love that. I am very happy with the success of the platform when it's going. I of course I hope that like you guys get to spread it. Get hello.
Hi.
Yes, sorry. I think that something happened with the connection there. You dropped off, and I thought I might have lost it. All right. Okay. I'm sorry about that. We'll make sure to edit that. I'll mark the time stamp. What was it? The last thing that you heard that I said?
I heard you say, I'm glad that the platform is going well, and then it went away.
All right. Okay. Well, yes. So that clap is for the editor. But yes, I'm very happy with the success of the platform. I hope more youth leaders and everyone uses it, gets to that. It really, I see it as a bridging gap, like you said. And Kristen, when you talk about your mission when it comes to you know like because I'm trying to relate back to your speaking engagement, or one of your talking reels, your speak reels. And I know you've had this in one of your books. It's called The Streetlights, right? And I'm trying to remember, you have a chant. You have something that you have them repeat over and over again. And I wanted to share that to the audience, but I'll allow you to do that. Tell us what is it that chant that you kind of let everyone repeat, and what is the emphasis of that? How does that help us?
Thank you for doing your homework. I was listening. I'm like, how does he know about that? He's not a youth leader, but it's our little secret. But I have this analogy of the last conversation that I had in my book called The
Okay.
Streetlights, like streetlights.
Hmm.
And it's a conversation that I had with my uncles and aunties. Like I said, I spent a lot of time with my elders. And in this conversation, my uncle was talking about himself as a little boy. And he was saying when he was younger that all the kids knew that by the time the street lights come on, that means you're late. You should have already been inside of your house because danger
Oh,
comes at nighttime. And I use that as kind of the substance of a speech that I give to practitioners, reminding them that they are like the streetlights and they are in their roles guiding young people back out of the darkness of all of the chaos that's going on in the
wow.
world, and that they have to be standing firm like the streetlights we pass, regardless if it's on the freeway or on your way home. But what you know for sure is that every day you can count on that streetlight being exactly where it's supposed to be. And when that light is out, let's say if you're driving down the road, you see it there, but the light's out, you notice that you have to put your bright lights on, or you're like, who do I call to get that light
Hmm.
fixed? That's what we look like to this young generation when we come to work angry and we're not happy about what we're doing, or we're stressed out and bringing all of our own problems into the moment that we're supposed to be the light for them. And so, what I have them chant together is, we kind of, after I frame that during our 60 minutes, we end with reminding ourselves that we are the streetlights that are committed to guiding this young generation out of the darkness so that they can get to the future that's waiting ahead.
We are the streetlights. That's I wanted to make sure I asked you that because I thought it was beautiful the way you framed it, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity for the audience and listeners to hear it themselves. That is true. We are the streetlights, and if that isn't kind of summarizes the mission and what you're trying to do, especially with the app and the platform, you're trying to make sense of why some rules are in place and why some actions need to be done, and bridging that connection between all these generations and just creating just a more harmonious relationship across all for everybody, right? Kristen, I want to wrap this up. I always wrap this up in such a way where I ask this question about the future, right? And not just how you see the future of advising Gen Z, your edtech platform. How are you seeing it affect the youth in particular, or not just Gen Z now? We're going into Gen Alpha. How are you seeing that also helping the next future generations? But more than that, Kristen, I'd like to ask, what is the future aspirations of Kristen Geez? And tell us where can we expect you, and what is the next story, next step for Kristen?
That's a great question. I am already in 2030. So 2030 for us in business is, for me personally, would be to see discipline reimagined sites across the state. And these discipline reimagined sites would be schools, county clerk offices, law enforcement office, those that are working in child protective services meeting with one another bi-monthly, because I think that the real issue that we're having with our kiddos is that there are so many adults in so many different areas that don't actually have an opportunity to have the conversation about what streets should we be putting mentoring programs on, what zip codes are most affected. We all touch them separately, and so I really see creating kind of be in a conduit of creating opportunities for youth leaders to network on a more structured way on the audience and the kiddos that they're touching. So that's kind of where I see as an organization. And I'd love to see, for myself personally, I'd love to do a documentary on youth leaders and the way that they address behavior. I think it has become a national issue, all of the mental health scares, as well as all of the crime that you're seeing from 10 to 24. And the real reason that we're seeing that, and even, why corporations are not able to hire young workers, is because that 10% of kids that were getting in trouble in school, they had the power to affect 80% of the school. But when they have graduated or gotten kicked out or dropped out or have gone to jail, they're now out in the world and no one cares about them, right? Not because we don't want to care, but because they didn't realize it was your job when you were in the confinement of school to make that relationship with an adult that would help you figure out next steps. Next step doesn't have to be college. Next step can be trade school. Next step can be career. But if we didn't have places for them to learn when they were in trouble about the type of careers they could have, then that's on us in society. So I see the bridging of every generation coming together. And if I can play a small role in just creating safe spaces for them to do that, that's what I see. I think the question is, as far as where do I see in the future, I think seeing, and by 2030 I'll be 40, in my 40s. So what I would love to be seeing is for us to not be so freaked out about the next generation, because there is room for us to make space for the old while still making space for the young that's coming in. And so I would love to be able to see community gatherings, because I would not be sitting here today without the elders and the mentors and my board members who took a chance on me when I was much younger coming up with this idea. I've been in this space since I was 21, and I have had leaders let me come sit in rooms and sit on boards and understand the behind the scenes things. And I think if we don't keep that going, especially knowing that millennials, we are now the rich auntie and rich uncle. It's our job to now create the family function. So if we don't even know the foundation of how they were able to keep family together when all of us are so afraid to have relationships, I love us as millennials because we are our parents' dreams and our ancestors' wildest goals. But as far as keeping long-term relationships, that piece we don't have. And so I don't know how we could go to 2030 not creating that caring and concerning, not just about you and the accolades and the winning the awards and having the viewers on social media, but you have no character because you can't build relationships because you're too afraid to let anyone actually know you. So I would love to see our generation care more about those older people, because we are now going to be them. And who's going to care about us if we don't start worrying about them now?
Oh my goodness. First of all, what a great way to wrap all of this up. That was beautiful, Kirsten. I love that. It's a concept that resonates with me, because I love how you said making space for the old and the young as well, because there's always this discourse, right? Or this, rather, again, the tension that it's felt like normal for the previous generations to rant about the younger generation, but it doesn't have to be. There needs to be a sense of harmony, because you are right. Who are going to take care of us when we reach our 60s and our
It
70s?
won't be Gen Z, not the way we're
We
going.
We're gonna need the Gen Alphas. We're gonna need the Gen Zs. We're all gonna need them. And what a way to kind of like start that trend, because if it isn't going to be us, and it's not definitely not gonna be the boomers, right? But why not be the bridge between these two generations and bring it all together and have this, make it normal, to look out for each other, because we all need each other moving forward into the future. Kristen, it's such a beautiful message that you do, and that's why I was very particularly excited about this episode. um as much as I'd like to keep you around, I would like to give you this opportunity. However, where can we find you? Where can we connect with you? Where can we buy your books? And where can we keep up with the future of Kirsten Geez?
Well, Kristen Geez on all social media platforms. You can go visit my website. There's a link in every area to go find the book. It's on Amazon now, and it's called like Streetlights. And I'd love
Mhm.
to stay connected and engaged with all of you, and also continue listening to Business Story of the Week, because you're going to continue hearing more people that might be in connection. So I think it's one of those that you have to search and seek for positive things. And so Kristen Geez on any social media platform, but also listening to shows like this is the best way to keep in touch.
Thank you so much, Kristen. And I wanna highlight your openness, your empathy in this show, in this episode today. And I am certain that I am not the only one who was enriched and enjoyed this show. Our audience and listeners must feel the same as well. Kristen, thank you so much for being in the show.
Thank you for having me.
And to all our audience and listeners out there, see you on the next one.
All right, so here's the thing. We try to get a little bit better every day, but we can't do it without you. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe below. And if you have any comments, just leave them in the space under.